Hello. My name is Elle. I am a female to male to female detransitioner. I have been very active in the detrans community on Reddit, and I decided to make a video talking about detransitioning because I have been thinking about it a lot for the past few weeks, and I just kind of wanted to let out some of my feelings, I guess, about it, and talk about what I've noticed. Mostly, I guess, talking about changes that have happened since I've been off hormones, but also I could go into why. What is this? What is that? I could also go into why I transitioned and how I'm coping now that I am detransitioning. So I guess I'll start with I came out as trans when I was 14, or after I had just turned 15. I came out to my family. I went through a lot of old notes today where I was talking about why I thought I was trans, and most of the reasons were because I wanted to look like a guy, I wanted to be perceived as a guy, and I had just gone through a very traumatic sexual experience with an older man on the internet, thankfully not in real life, but it was still extremely traumatic for me and affected my confidence, my sense of self-worth, and my wanting, I didn't want people to perceive me as a woman anymore, because the reason that whole thing happened is because I was a female existing on the internet. So obviously I wanted to change my gender after that happened. So I got very active in the trans communities on Reddit, on Twitter, and spent most of my time online. Didn't do anything in real life at all. Really, I didn't have any friends. I didn't go to school at that point. So the only people I really talked to on a daily basis were the people that I talked to online, and that definitely didn't help. That didn't. I was basically consumed by trans media online, trans content online. So about a year later, I started testosterone, and I was 16. I had been going to a therapist who tried to tell me that she didn't want me to transition, and when she told me that, I was like, fuck you, I'm not ever coming back here. And then I went to a therapist from the LGBT center. Then I went to a therapist from the LGBT center who told me that she was ready to get me on hormones from day one, excited and ready to just help me transition. So 6 months go by with her. Also, she was just an awful therapist. Every session that we had together, she would basically just talk about her life the entire time and tell me stories from her life. She was 60, and she would just tell me about when she was growing up as a lesbian, and I would just be like, okay, you're my therapist, but okay. So anyways, after that 6 months was up, I got on testosterone, and I was so excited for all the changes. I wanted my voice to drop. I wanted broad shoulders. I wanted facial hair. I wanted to be seen as a boy, and all of that happened for me almost immediately after starting testosterone at age 16, which I'm guessing most that's probably why my voice dropped so much, is because I was still a teenager, and why it hasn't changed that much since going off testosterone is probably because that's like a permanent change for me. Being that I was so young when I started hormones, and I will probably have to deal with that for the rest of my life. So I got all the changes I wanted. Within the first 6 months, I was like totally passing as a guy, probably even within the first month, because my voice dropped immediately. Like within the first week, I felt a lump in my throat. And I remember how like excited I was that I wasn't gonna have to be perceived as female anymore solely because of that voice drop, which is ironic now because it's the biggest thing that I'm insecure about as a female, as a woman now, because I just totally 100% come off as a trans woman. Whenever I open my mouth, I know this for a fact. So I got all the changes I wanted very soon after starting hormones, and let's see, like the first year that I was on, I still looked very young, like 12-year-old boy, you know, fat face and like really just gross like rat stash and like sideburns that were like super long, and just gross. Just really and then as I made it past the first year and then on to year 2, my face started to thin out. I started to look more like a teenage boy, like older, you know, like 17, 18, which is how old I was at the time. I gained a lot of weight in that second year though, because I was basically just eating whatever I wanted. I was eating a lot of pasta every day, basically. And so I gained a lot of weight, and that made me really kind of insecure, but I was also happy because I was living as a man for the first time, totally passing as a man, all the time, never a doubt in anyone's mind that I was male, and I had changed my name at that point, and I had changed my gender marker at that point, so I was able to live completely socially as male. And then I got a girlfriend, and so everything was just like totally at the top of my like life. Like I got everything I wanted basically out of transitioning, and I didn't even have to really think about being trans anymore. It was just like it wasn't even a thing. Like my girlfriend was totally great, and we had like great like intimacy, and there was no problems with my like being trans at all. So and then going into from year 2 to 3 is when I started to question my gender identity again. When I was 18 to age 19, I was going through a lot of changes in my life. I graduated high school, broke up with my girlfriend, got really sad about, you know, the relationship and what was I going to do with my life. I didn't know. I hadn't gotten into any colleges. I was really confused as to like where I was going next. And I really didn't like my body. I was really fat, and I never had top surgery, so I was like thinking about that when that was going to happen. And so over that summer, I did a lot of traveling and thought a lot about myself, and then I started losing weight because I started exercising and I went vegan and felt really good about myself. Actually, surprisingly, probably the best I ever felt about myself once I started losing weight. And losing weight actually impacted my self-confidence more than any other aspect of like my time transitioning. So that really made me feel kind of weird. I was like, how do I feel so good just from losing, like, I ended up losing about 50 pounds. And just from exercising, just from eating healthy, just from like looking in the mirror and being like, wow, like I actually like my body. And that was the first time in my life where I ever felt like that. And I also, immediately after I started testosterone, I stopped having bottom dysphoria, which should have been a red flag to me that I didn't need to transition at all. Because I had very intense bottom dysphoria before testosterone, but then once I started testosterone, it was like snap and gone. Don't even worry about that anymore. And so that had never been a problem for me throughout my entire time on testosterone. I had never felt dysphoric about not having a penis anymore, which had been like the biggest factor of me wanting to transition in the first place. So anyways, so once I started losing weight and got to the point where I had lost 50 pounds and I was starting to express myself the way I wanted to with my clothing choices, that was the point where I was thinking, like, am I actually trans? Am I gender fluid? Am I non-binary? Or am I something else? Like, do I want to start being feminine? Because after I lost weight, I started going out shopping and actually enjoying that for the first time. And once I was like shopping and like, I of course I was always wearing my binder because I never got top surgery. So I would put on a shirt or something and I would be like, what if I had worn a bra with this? And then I would be like, why would I do that? I've never wanted to do that. I had never, like, my entire time identifying as trans, I had never been comfortable with my boobs at all or wanted to see them or anything. So, but then I went to the LGBT center and I started mingling with everyone there. And I met a couple like AFAB non-binary people or AFAB like trans masculine people who would wear bras and just totally be comfortable with that. And I was like, wow, I wish I could do that. And then I'd be like, why can't I? I have boobs. And then I would just get into this weird headspace where I would be like, don't think about that anymore. Don't even entertain that thought because that's not something you can do. So I went through a long period of probably from the beginning of 2019 until the end of summer where I was like questioning what I was doing like with my transition, if I still wanted to transition. I was just thinking like, never got far enough actually in my brain to get to the point where I was like, why am I still transitioning? But I would have thoughts where I would get lost and I would be like, what if I had never transitioned? What if I had never gone on testosterone? Like, what if I had just learned to love myself and I probably could have gotten there, blah, 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 because I want to. And then I would think like, oh, what if I could just go out and be a cis woman? What if I could wear a bra and a skirt and a dress or whatever and just have people see me as a woman? And then I'm like, but I can't have that anymore. I can't have that. I made that decision. I can't have that. You already, like, I would just tell myself, I'd be like, you fucked that up a long time ago. So why are you thinking about that now? So I would have thoughts like that and I would just talk myself out of it. And never got to the point where I actually realized that I could detransition, because I just never even thought about that. I never entertained that possibility, you know? So, over the fall of 2018 and then spring 2019, I was doing college applications and then I worked over the summer. And I got into my state school where I currently go. And the week that I moved out of my house and my hometown to go live 3 hours away to go to state school, that first week that I was there, I remember like I moved into the gender inclusive floor of my dorm, meaning that it's basically all LGBT people and gender nonconforming people. And so the roommate assignments, they aren't based on gender, they're just based on like random. So I have 2 roommates, 1 guy and 1 girl. And so that wasn't an issue for me, which I was very thankful for, because I knew that when I was choosing my dorm assignment, I was like, I am not living with a dude. Even though at that point I was still a trans guy and I was totally passing and living as a man, I was like, there's no way in hell I'm living with a dude. Not doing it. So I'm glad that my past self like knew that enough to make that decision for me. So once I got to school, moved away, and like started feeling kind of like free of like the burden of living in my hometown, I started to realize like I can express myself however I want, and I don't have to worry about like whatever, like people that know me. Like I just get to exist here, basically. And that first week, something that had been happening for about a year was my hair started falling out. In clumps, like big chunks of hair coming out when I would take a shower. Huge like hairballs like this big would form. And I had been growing my hair out for about a year and a half at the beginning of the semester. And I was like sick of it. I was like, I took a shower one morning, saw how much hair came out of my head, and I was like, I am done with this. I am not gonna let any more of my hair fall out, because my hair is my source of confidence. So I was like, fuck this. If I have to go off hormones, I'll go off hormones. I just don't want my hair to fall out anymore. So I Googled trans guys who go off testosterone because of hair loss. And I found a few things, but the first thing that caught my eye was the detransitioning subreddit, where somebody posted their story, which was why I decided to detransition. And I looked at that and I was like, okay. And so I read it, and I read through the whole thing, and I sat there and I read it, and I saw myself as this person writing this, and I was like, oh my God. And I just felt all of this like wash over me and be like, this is what I have to do. I never let myself think that before, but it all just clicked together the second I read that first post, and I was like, this is it. This is what I have to do. Stop hormones, let my body do its thing. Like, I understand now that I can be a cis woman again. I haven't gone too far. I haven't passed the point of no return. This can be a reality for me. Like, I can live as a woman again. And when I let myself think that, oh my God, it was just such a big like relief for me, like knowing that I wasn't trapped, like living this inauthentic life where nobody saw me the way I saw myself. And that's the way I've described it to anyone who's asked me why, is like, the whole time I was transitioning, I saw myself as a woman, and like that never went away. No matter how much I started passing, no matter how much facial hair I was growing, no matter how my voice sounded, I looked in the mirror and I was like I was happy with myself, and testosterone made me happy with myself, like, and I was okay with all the changes that were happening. But the way that I interacted with society, the way that I interacted with society, and the way that I perceived myself and my role in society was different than how everyone else perceived me. And it's really hard to explain living like inauthentically as a trans person, because it's like, I just know I was never trans. Like I transitioned, but I shouldn't have, because I never, like, I lived as trans and I lived as a man, and I got both of those experiences, and I'm very grateful for my time living as a man and seeing what that was like. But I shouldn't have done that. I never should have been able to do that. I never should have even entertained that possibility, because I never, like, really felt like I was a man, or that I should have been. But it's impossible to say whether someone should or should not transition. I just think there are always other things that you can do first to help yourself before you try transitioning, and then, if nothing else, helps you when you're older. Like, my thing is that I was 16 when I started testosterone, and if I had been forced to wait, I thought that being trans was like making me want to like kill myself. But if I had been going to a good therapist, if I had been going to school, if I had had friends and had meaningful relationships with people outside of the internet, I know that I would have been able to reconcile my female identity with myself the way that I was. I was just living so, like, disconnected from my body, and so disconnected from who I really was. And so, yeah, that's the gist of it. I think I'll make another video about the changes that I've seen since going off testosterone, because this has gotten very long and I don't want to keep dragging this on forever. So thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions for me, if you have any comments, whatever, please feel free to leave them in the description, or not in the description, in the comment section. And yeah, I hope that I have, like, all I want to do with, like, putting myself out there and telling the story is I just want to, like, be a voice for someone who isn't comfortable, and I just want people who have gone through this to relate, and to show that, like, we are not alone. And I mean, there's going to be a lot of us, I know that. And so I want to be kind of a voice of hope in a way, like, that this isn't the end of the world. Like, I was on testosterone for 3 years, and now I've been off for 4.5 months, and I just, like, I always find insecurities about myself, but it's like, that's what I was doing before transition, and so to be doing that after transition and deciding to detransition, it's just like I'm back to square one, and I don't want to feel like that. And so I guess I just want everyone who watches this to know that, like, if you're going through this, like, you just have to have hope that it'll get better, that, like, life, that there are more important things, you know, to be worried about, I guess. You know, it's not the be all end all. Like, my voice, I'm probably gonna try to do voice training, but if this is the way my voice sounds for the rest of my life, like, I made that decision, and I have to deal with that. I have to live with that. There's nothing else that I can do. I decided that I was male and that I would never change my mind, and then I changed my mind. And that's life. That's part of life. And I guess, yeah. Just coming to terms with who we are, what we are, and being at peace with ourselves. That's the message I want to send out to you. So, thank you for watching. Goodbye.